So good evening again, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this 10th anniversary of the Cayman Islands National Healthcare Conference. In particular this evening, we'd love to welcome His Excellency the Governor, Mr. Martyn Roper, also the Acting Premier and Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Minister Roy McTaggart, Honourable Roy McTaggart. Then we have the Minister for Health, Environment, Culture and Housing is just on his way. And I'd also like to welcome Councillor David White and Councillor Barbara Connolly, who are with us as well. And also the Chair of the HSA Board and the CEO of HSA. Welcome. And welcome to all of you, all of our delegates, our speakers. It's going to shape up to be a fantastic 2.5 days. This event has grown in 10 years from just over 200 people in the first year to almost 1,000 delegates expected over the course of the next 3 days. We also have 35 exhibitors and nearly 50 sponsors. It's a true testament to the way this event has grown and flourished, and I'm sure some of you who tried to sign up weren't able to sign up right away because things were getting full quite quickly when the registration opened. So we'd like to first of all start by thanking, and I'm sure you've seen all their signs everywhere, the Premium Plus sponsor, Ironshore Pharmaceuticals, our cocktail reception sponsor, Health City Cayman Islands, our premium sponsors, the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority, the Cleveland Clinic, Kelly Holding, and the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, Agriculture and Lands. My name is Nancy Barnard. I'm the Acting Chief Officer and Permanent Secretary for the Ministry responsible for health. I'd also like to acknowledge our former Chief Officer, Jennifer Hearn, who was pivotal in developing this conference with CEO Lizette Yearwood of HSA. Jennifer Hearn, give us a little wave. She was the co-chair and also the host of this event for 9 years. Very big shoes to fill. So I've said Wi-Fi is sponsored by Generali with many thanks. The password is just Generali. Please turn off your cell phones. We have an exciting couple of messages and a speech as well, a keynote speech. And we have many exhibitors outside in the foyer at the end of the hall and in the adjacent Grand Cayman room just next door. So please make sure you go around and see what they have to offer. It may be something brand new, something you don't think you need, but maybe some member of your family or a friend might need the service that they provide. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to welcome Minister for Health, Environment, Culture and Housing, the Honourable Dwayne Seymour, who's joining us right now. Governor Roper is going to say a few words. I just want to give him a formal introduction because he's been here for a few months. Some of you may not have had the pleasure of meeting him yet. He is a highly experienced career diplomat with a successful track record in senior corporate leadership roles across the world. Governor Roper was born in West Yorkshire. They have the year here, but I don't think I should mention that. Prior to his appointment as Governor of the Cayman Islands, Mr. Roper was Minister and Deputy Head of Mission in Beijing, where he was responsible for a network of over 800 people across 5 diplomatic posts. His earlier career includes postings to Algeria as a UK ambassador, Deputy Head of Mission in Brasilia, and as First Secretary, Economics and Development with the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, in Paris. Governor Roper has previous experience working with the BOTCs from his time as head of the Gibraltar section at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in London, where he had specific responsibility for policy concerning law and order, justice, and good governance. During his time with the United Nations in the early part of the 1990s, Governor Roper's role included the Special Committee on Decolonization, and he was Vice Consul in Kuwait at the time of the outbreak of the First Gulf War and was made an Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, an OBE, in his return to the UK from his posting in Algeria. Governor Roper is married to Elizabeth, who most of us who have met fondly know her as Lizzie. He has 2 children, a son, Matthew, and a daughter, Jessica. He's a keen cyclist, and I'm used to seeing him in his workout gear at the many 5Ks and other events in Cayman. Governor Roper.
Good evening. Acting Premier Minister Seymour, Councillors Connolly and White, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my great pleasure to be here this evening to welcome you all. I've just noticed there's a rather scary clock down there, which is presumably designed to make us keep our speeches to time, so I'll try not to look at it too closely. And I would just like to say happy birthday and many happy returns, because the 10th anniversary of this wonderful conference, which is a fantastic achievement. It's my first time attending the event, and I'm really impressed with the diversity of issues on the agenda over the next couple of days. We have distinguished local and international speakers to present the issues, and these are leaders and in some instances pioneers in their respective fields. Our ability to provide such an accomplished panel is testament to the recurring success of this conference, and I thank them in advance for their participation. And as I've said, this is the 10th anniversary of this conference, so I do want to congratulate the Ministry of Health, the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority, the organising committee, and all other key stakeholders on achieving this significant milestone. It underscores a commitment to the health of this nation on the part of government, the medical community, and other healthcare professionals. It was Winston Churchill who once said, "Healthy citizens are the greatest asset any country can have." And I applaud this sustained effort to ensure that the citizens of Cayman have access to information that will enhance their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Approximately 1,200 people are expected to attend the conference, as we've heard, over the next 2 or 3 days, and the organisers tell me that the event sold out within 4 hours of registration being opened. The healthcare conference is not only a priority on many people's calendars, but it reflects a strong desire on the part of Cayman's population to be well and to learn more about what being well looks like and feels like in today's world. And this conference has inspired many health initiatives and programs over the years, one of the most notable being our wonderful Deputy Governor's 5K Challenge, which was born out of the 2013 conference. That year, the focus was on workplace wellness, and Deputy Governor was so motivated by what he learned throughout the conference that he established a walking and running club for civil servants who wanted to focus on their health. And this annual DG 5K Challenge seeks to promote a healthier, more active, and more socially engaged civil service and community at large. To date, almost $300,000 has been raised for local charities and projects through the DJ 5K Challenge. And as it happens, we have the DJ's 5K Challenge this Sunday, so do please come along and take part in that. I personally make exercise an integral part of my life. It's a part of my daily routine because I believe it's really important to my own well-being. I enjoy running, less so the cycling, but I enjoy, particularly having seen how fast the Premier cycles. But I do enjoy running, and I do know the Deputy Governor is training extremely hard for the run on Sunday, but I don't think he's going to beat me over that finishing line. Turning back to this year's theme of innovating the future of healthcare, building on a decade of progress, this is an exciting focus, and I'm interested to hear how your discussions go over the next few days. From robotics, One Health, and telemedicine to reverse innovation and climate change, both globally and locally, the healthcare sector is changing rapidly. Technological advancements and new discoveries are being made in the healthcare industry at a staggering pace, and we, as patients and healthcare professionals, have better access to more information than ever before. As a result, we are more empowered to make important decisions that affect our health and well-being. So I encourage you all to use the wealth of knowledge that will be provided here over the next few days from these fantastic speakers and the interactive sessions to create actionable outcomes for you, your family, and your community that will improve the overall health of the Cayman Islands. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Governor Roper. I'd like to now make some formal remarks introducing our Minister for Health, Honourable Dwayne Seymour, who many of you know. Certainly my ministry team is all sitting here, and we get to work with him on a day-to-day basis. He's a businessman who grew up in the beautiful district of Bodden Town. He has been very active in the community from a very young age. He is elected member for the largest electoral district in the Cayman Islands, which is Bodden Town East, and is currently serving as our Minister for Health. Also other really big subjects, environment, culture and housing, all of which keep us very busy. This is his second term in office, the first being from 2009 to 2013. Minister Seymour was fortunate to serve in Cabinet on both occasions. Minister Seymour has been involved with the Bodden Town Football Club for over 30 years and served as captain and coach, and is currently the Vice President. He has been the chairman of the Commonwealth Youth Parliament. He's very keenly interested in entertainment, which is a good thing because we have culture in our ministry. He's organised and sponsored many musical talent shows, mainly to identify rising stars, through the event called Exposure. Mentoring the youth and empowering them to believe that everything is possible once the work is put in and with a very positive attitude is another of Minister Seymour's passions. He has 34 years of experience in the airline and aviation industry, including aviation security, and was a national flag carrier's regional and international airline manager in the past. He is a highly certified aviation consultant and trainer and takes distinct pride in developing airline security as a local career. It is with immense pride that Minister Seymour seeks to ensure that he has more than 75% Caymanians within his employ. Minister Seymour has been the President and CEO of Airport Professional Services, which operates in Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac for the past 18 years. He also serves on many boards, not only within the ministry, but including the Prison Inspection Board, the Health Insurance Commission in the past, the Status and Permanent Residency Immigration Board. He is currently a member of the National Conservation Review Committee and, something that may be new for many of you, co-chairing the upcoming Stakeholders Steering Committee to address the scourge of single-use plastics in the Cayman Islands. Minister Seymour is married with children and attends the Webster Memorial United Church in Bodden Town. And I'd like to turn over to our minister, who I know is very, very passionate about health and also what we can do to look at the sustainability of healthcare in the Cayman Islands in the long term. Minister Seymour.
Good evening. Protocol being established. When I walked in first, I realized that people work 8:30 to 5, so it takes them a little while to get here, especially through traffic. And I didn't see as much people as I thought I would have seen. All the seats would have been filled, knowing how quickly the reservations went online. But I realized that after I sat down, more people came in. So thank you for making me believe that you came to see me. But it's only the free advice from the doctors that you're really here for. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the annual Cayman Islands Healthcare Conference, the 10th staging of this event. 10 years is a hard number to get nowadays. I mean, I worked for a company 16 years, but you'll never find that nowadays. And 10 is a hard number to reach, and it really has to be applauded. Most marriages don't last that long. What a wonderful milestone to achieve. It is exciting to realize that a local conference, which had just over 200 attendees in its first year in 2010, has grown 10 years later to a regionally and internationally recognized event, which draws over 1,000 participants this year, and this year had a waiting list of over 300 people who want to be a part of the activities. This is a testament to the quality of speakers who have stood on this stage over the past 9 years, as well as the organizing committee's commitment to offering relevant, timely topics to digest. It also shows a keen desire on the part of both the medical and the wider healthcare community and the general public to be more informed, empowered, and in turn go out to inform and empower others. We have explored many profound issues and themes over the past 9 years. They include healthcare economics, the search for quality and affordability, patient-centered care, achieving quality outcomes, a shared approach to workplace wellness, winning the war against chronic non-communicable diseases, and food for thought, exploring the relationship between nutrition and health. Over the next 3 days, we'll be hearing from industry experts and professionals on topics centered on this year's theme, Innovating the Future of Healthcare, building on a decade of progress. Some will be speaking to the future of this industry here in Cayman and globally, while others will show us the various accomplishments and stride that Cayman has made in the healthcare sector over the past 10 years. We look forward to hearing from Dr. James Hospedales, former Executive Director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency. Later this evening, he is no stranger to the healthcare conference, having been here twice before in 2014 and 2016. He's going to help us look back and then forward at the region's public health, touching on issues such as non-communicable diseases, obesity epidemics, which are driving healthcare costs, the threats of emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases, and the effects of accelerating climate change and environmental degradation. Tomorrow, Dr. Lewis Warrington, Vice President of Medical Affairs for Ironshore Pharmaceuticals, will get the day started with a presentation about the advancements and innovation in the treatment of psychiatric conditions, namely depression, anxiety, and attention deficit hyperactive disorder, over the past decade and how far we've come. Incidentally, Ironshore Pharmaceuticals is our Premium Plus sponsor again this year. Give them a round of applause, please. And we welcome them back next year. I encourage you to stop by the Ironshore exhibit to learn more about Journée PM, the company's first product, which was recently launched and is indicated for the treatment of attention deficit hyperactive disorder in patients 6 years and older. It has the potential to help millions of patients affected by ADHD. Later on, Dr. Troy Gatcliffe, a gynecologic oncologist at Miami Cancer Institute, part of Baptist Health Care, South Florida, will speak about the rise and potential fall of robotic surgery in his field. Dr. Gatcliffe is also a friend of the conference and was last with us in 2017 when he spoke on the link between cancer and obesity. We look forward to hearing from him again. Also on the agenda for tomorrow, Dr. Eric Geisbowski, Clinical Solutions Special Manager at Abbott Diagnostics Business, who will be talking about state-of-the-art clinical support systems in the healthcare digital transformation and how to improve care and reduce cost. You won't want to miss the presentation by Carol Appleyard, President and CEO of Carol Appleyard Consulting, who will be discussing telemedicine, the remote diagnostic and treatment of patients by means of telecommunication technology, and how it can be used to alleviate the costs of healthcare delivery in the Cayman Islands and the wider Caribbean region. Some of you may be familiar with Nasolo Thompson from the Pan American Health Organization, who was just here in Cayman in June to conduct workshops in conjunction with our ministry on the topic of protecting populations of small islands, like the Cayman Islands, from the anticipation impacts of climate change on health and health systems. Ms. Thompson has prepared a presentation on the challenge of climate change and the health for the Caribbean region, which will be delivered on her behalf by Acting Chief Officer Nancy Bernard tomorrow in session 6, as she is unable to attend the conference due to unforeseen circumstances. An interesting discussion will be the one held by Dr. Kerry Rood, Extension Veterinarian and Associate Department Head at Utah State University, who will talk about One Health and the veterinarian's role in combating antibiotic resistance, zoonotic disease, and climate change. Sounds interesting. One Health considers the health of humans, animals, and the environment in which we live as a whole envelope in which we share together. For those of us who are animal lovers and pet lovers, this is an important issue, as antibiotic resistance is a global problem, combined with the fact that the majority of newly emerging diseases are animal-related. A breakout session on One Health will follow Dr. Rood's presentation and will include local panelists, Dr. Samantha Dorman from the Department of Agriculture and Dr. Brendan Lee from St. Matthew's University. Their input from a local perspective should be very enlightening. While on the topic of breakout sections, I would like to make the mention of other workshops which should take place tomorrow afternoon and deals with the subject of living with invisible illnesses. That panel would include Alyssa Christian from the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, Dr. Santiago de Solo, HSA rheumatologist, Simone Sheehan, HSA nutritionist, and Dr. Romanish de Sousa, interventional neurologist at Health City, and Angela Berry, multiple sclerosis patient. This is such an important issue because we will probably all know someone who's coping with a medical condition that is not outwardly visible to others, such as rheumatoid arthritis, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, hidden inflammatory disorders, lupus, or multiple sclerosis. Saturday may be a shorter day, but the subject matters being covered are no less important. Dr. Anish Shetty from Health City, Cayman Islands, will be presenting the topic, Digital Future of Healthcare and User Innovation. He will chronicle a hospital system journey from a user of healthcare software to a developer of software, and finally to present day, where the organization is preparing itself to become a provider of technology solutions to both patients and caregivers. Later that morning, Dr. Jason Markle, interventional orthopedic physician at Regenix Cayman, will explore the development of the cutting-edge medical field of regenerative medicine and orthobiologics, on how innovations in Cayman are positioning the island as a prominent player in the groundbreaking subspecialty. Closing out the 10th Annual Healthcare Conference will be Professor Virginia Murray, Head of Global Disaster Risk Reduction at Public Health England, who will speak about public health threats and disaster management, asking questions such as what threats to our health are on the horizon, what are the health emergencies, disasters and environmental threats, how we might tackle the effects from them, how our international agencies working together, and what should Cayman be thinking about at the government, institutional, and domestic levels to mitigate these public health threats. Professor Murray is a number of presenters who have traveled a long way to join us, and I must say her topic resonates deeply with everyone who bears it because of its timeliness. We are here in the height of hurricane season, and although we have not been impacted by any storm so far, thankfully I can't help but to think our friends and neighbors in the Bahamas who are right now recovering from the effects of the hurricane, catastrophic and historic proportions. Having just marked the 15th anniversary of Hurricane Ivan's devastation of the Cayman Islands, we can surely empathize with Bahamas. I am so grateful that we as a nation have the resources to be able to help the citizens of the country in their time of need. I would like to acknowledge the generosity of Health City Authority, the Christa Tomlinson Memorial Hospital, Doctors Hospital, and Health City Cayman Islands, and the Health Services Authority Cayman Islands, who partnered to donate more than 4,000 pounds of medical supplies to the Bahamas medical community. And I want to thank Ms. Lizette for coordinating that effort. In addition, a team of 6 Cayman nurses from the HSA and Health City is on the ground for 2 weeks, providing relief report to healthcare workers and conducting clinics in Marsh Harbor and the Abaco Islands. I actually get a report every day. They will be relieved next month by another group of nurses. The HSA also worked with a US-based ambulance supplier to facilitate the donation of 8 ambulances to the affected islands of Grand Bahama and Abaco. Let us continue to keep the Bahamas in our thoughts and prayers and wish them well as they go through their recovery process. As we still have 2 months of hurricane season remaining to navigate, it will be useful to gain some insight from Professor Murray on how to live in a state of preparedness for what we hope and pray will never happen. She will also be meeting with the officials from Hazard Management Cayman Islands to hear about the work that the department is doing in the area of disaster management. I think we all can agree that based on the content of this year's program, we will all be leaving here inspired, motivated, and equipped with information that will help us make better decisions and lead healthier and more fulfilling lives. This would be an opportune time to thank our sponsors for helping to make this year's conference a reality. We appreciate your investment in the vision of Healthcare Conference, which allows us to secure quality speakers such as those I've just mentioned and offer a solid program to attendees. Your concern for the health and well-being of the people of the Cayman Islands is indeed admirable. To our esteemed speakers and panelists, both local and visiting, thank you for being here to share your research, knowledge, and experience with us. Your input is invaluable, and we look forward to hearing from you. And to the attendees here today, thank you for your commitment to enhancing your lives and the lives of your patients and loved ones, which has compelled you to seek out information at this conference that will ensure a healthier future. Before I close, I would like to single out 2 individuals, and not necessarily meaning that these 2 individuals are the only ones, who have been instrumental in the successful organization and execution of the Cayman Islands Healthcare Conference for the past 9 years. I want to honor their hard work with a token of appreciation and would like to be grateful for your indulgence just a little while longer. I must say that the minister responsible at the time was past minister, Mr. Mark Scotland, and I called him up to try to find out how was this born. And he says, Minister, I have to tell you the truth. He says, Miss Lizette Yearwood is the person who came to me with this idea. He said, I must tell you the truth. And that's how it was born. And the chief officer, the past chief officer, Miss Ahern, was also a part of this team, which she's also here. And Ms. Lizette is the Chief Executive Officer of the Health Services Authority and the co-chair of the conference. Your leadership of this conference and passion for health care provision in the Cayman Islands is recognized and greatly appreciated. Mr. Mark Scotland, past Minister of Health, with whose support in the early years the conference came into being. Please join me in thanking both of these awardees. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Enjoy the conference. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Minister. We're going to do a little innovating up here now and ask if Governor Roper can be excused because he has to jet off to something, maybe some exercising, maybe something else. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. And Minister, don't worry, I know Saturday is normally when everything's chock-a-block, and I'd like to, there he is, somebody else that was in the traffic, but all the way from East End. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Binoy. All right, at this time I'd like to welcome Fiona McDougall, who is the Senior Vice President of Operations at Ironshore Pharmaceuticals and Development, and has been a sitting member of the Cayman Islands Mental Health Commission since 2017. Ms. McDougall has 20 years of executive experience in strategic planning, business operations, and project management in the healthcare and business operations and pharmaceuticals industries. Prior to joining Ironshore, she held CEO and VP roles at healthcare consulting firms, providing strategy and operation consulting services, including a specialty focus on mental health and community care. Ms. McDougall has assisted pharmaceutical and health services organizations analyze finances and business operations, plan product launches, establish service delivery models, and develop strategies to address funding pressures, which we really need to focus on nowadays, improve operational efficiency, and deliver meaningful clinical results. Ms. McDougall is regularly called upon to assist healthcare organizations and pharmaceutical companies to work with governments and regulatory agencies to develop strategic plans and establish an infrastructure to support new services and the approval and commercial launches of pharmaceutical drug products. Ms. McDougall has an honours bachelor degree from University of Western Ontario and a Master of Business Administration degree from the Schulich School of Business in Toronto, Canada. Please welcome Ms. McDougall to the podium.
Good evening and welcome. I'm honored to stand before you on behalf of Ironshore Pharmaceuticals and Development to participate in this 10th anniversary of the Cayman Islands Healthcare Conference. Our CEO, Mr. David Licorice, would have loved to have been here this evening, but unfortunately, he is off island. David was nominated as a Biotech CEO of the Year in Canada and had already committed to attending that event prior to the dates of the healthcare conference being announced. However, he is very much looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Congratulations on this significant milestone of a 10-year anniversary of the Cayman Islands Health Conference. This conference has been getting bigger and better every year. The distinguished set of speakers who educate on topics that are relevant to all aspects of health and wellness is truly impressive. And thank you to government and to all of our fellow sponsors who, with their support, have enabled this conference to be available to all delegates free of charge every year. It has been Ironshore's pleasure to be a sponsor of this conference for many years. But this year, in particular, is our second year as the Premier Plus sponsor. It's very special for us to participate in your 10-year anniversary because it's also Ironshore 10-year anniversary. We were established in the Cayman Islands in 2009. And while we in the Cayman Islands are one office, and we have offices also in Canada and the United States, it's really our local Cayman office that has been the hub of innovation and development for our company. We can attribute much of our success of our local office to the environment and resources that the Cayman Islands is known for. This has been an incredibly safe and welcoming environment to attract expertise, to grow our local talent, to establish intellectual property, and to partner with some of the leading financial and legal institutions who are also based here locally. I know if our CEO, David, was here, he would encourage government to look to Ironshore as a successful example of the potential of the pharmaceutical and biotech industry as a new pillar of economic growth here in the Cayman Islands. It's noteworthy to mention that the pharmaceutical industry, for example, in Ireland generates more than $40 billion annually and employs tens of thousands of people directly and indirectly in that industry. And Cayman shares many of the same economic conditions as Ireland, such as an English-speaking population, a favorable business tax environment, a well-educated workforce, and in our case, great geographic proximity to the North American markets. We at Ironshore have been blessed to have enjoyed a decade of success and progress in this beautiful country. Thank you. This year's conference, the theme, Innovating the Future of Healthcare, Building on a Decade of Progress, is one that very much resonates with our local office. Over the past decade, our team has embraced our CEO's passion and vision for developing a new drug delivery technology that has the potential to improve patient outcomes in many different disease areas, and our initial focus has been in the area of mental health, specifically with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. ADHD is a therapeutic area that we are very passionate about because it's a condition that affects a patient's relationship with their family and peers and impacts their ability to function their best at home, at work, at school, across all times of the day. Our CEO had identified an opportunity to develop a novel technology that could enable medication to be dosed at night so that it starts working in the morning and provides symptom control throughout the day and into the evening. So over the last decade, through innovation, resilience, and collaboration with some of the world's leading experts, that vision, which initially was deemed impossible, came to fruition with the development of the first of its kind drug delivery technology, Delexis. At last year's conference, our CEO is pleased to announce that our first medication built on that Delexis platform, Jornay PM, indicated for the treatment of ADHD, was approved by the US Food and Drug Administration. So following almost a year of building funds and building out the commercial team in the United States, Jornay PM was launched and made available to healthcare providers and patients in June of this year. So like most of you in this room, it's really the patients and the families whose lives we can improve by medical innovation, by technologies, who are ultimately the reason why we get out of bed and work so hard every day. And we're looking forward to hearing more stories, as we have been hearing from the US, of families whose lives have been materially changed by these innovations. We're looking forward to hearing these stories locally, here in Cayman, as we make Journey PM available in the Cayman Islands over the next 2 months. The opportunity to potentially improve the health outcomes in our own backyard is something that our entire team has been looking forward to. So I encourage you to visit our booth at the end of the hall, talk to our team members who will be there, learn a little more, share your stories. And as our CEO mentioned at the conference last year, Ironshore intends to provide a portion of our profits from the sale of the medication back into the Cayman community, supporting those most in need in the field of mental health and in pediatric sectors. Mental wellness is something that cannot be viewed in isolation of the health of the total person. Increasingly, we are seeing health systems, governments, and other agencies putting a greater focus on mental wellness. As many more public figures acknowledge and speak about their mental health in public forums, the stigma is starting to decline. We're coming together as a community to identify ways to address mental health risks and build better support systems. Globally, approximately 13% of the population has been diagnosed with a mental health or substance use disorder. Eliminating the stigma associated with mental illness is a critical first step to enable people to seek treatment and support. Ironshore is committed to helping to advance the dialogue of reducing stigma for mental health disorders. I encourage all of you to attend tomorrow morning's 8:30 a.m. session with our VP and Head of Medical Affairs, Dr. Lewis Warrington, who will speak about a decade of advancements and innovations in the treatment of psychiatric conditions. How far have we come? Finally, as I look out into this crowd of delegates, I would be remiss if I didn't congratulate both the organizers and the attendees of this Cayman Islands Healthcare Conference. What an incredible turnout and an amazing lineup of speakers. And events like this just don't happen without a tremendous effort. It's really the organizers who shoulder all of the details, putting together an interesting agenda, attracting the top speakers, and then executing on all of those logistics. And there's nothing like the delegates to bring the conference to life, of course, and that's all of you who are taking the time out of your evening this evening, your workday tomorrow, and in fact your weekend to attend this conference. And share what you learn with your family and with your friends and your colleagues. So we encourage you to keep learning and keep talking about the topics, because medicine changes all the time. And it's important to stay up to date with new innovations and advancements. And that's really why we're all here. So thank you to government, the organizers, our fellow sponsors, and importantly, all of you, the delegates this evening. So have a great evening and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much to Ms. McDougall, and also a huge thank you and round of applause for our premier sponsorship from Ironshore Pharmaceuticals. Thank you so much. And again, keeping it free is very important. I also love the fact that down at your stand down there, which is in a beautiful, well-lit area when it's the daytime, there's some really cute little donuts, because we tried to get something really, really healthy, which is the granola bars, and so the donuts are calling people down the hall, so that was very clever. Right now I'm going to introduce Dr. Rebeca de Miguel. I think a few people might know her, but I'll formally give some background notes for her as well. She's a Vice President for the Cayman Islands Medical and Dental Society. Dr. Rebeca de Miguel is a well-proclaimed dermatologist and venereologist practicing in the Cayman Islands for the last 8 years. She acquired a PhD on the topic of psoriasis. Dr. de Miguel holds a double master's in both oncological dermatology and trichology hair transplant. She is a member of various distinguished dermatological associations, such as the Caribbean Dermatology Association, the American Academy of Dermatology, European Academy of Dermatology, Spanish Academy of Dermatology, and American Academy of Aesthetic Medicine. As a dermatologist in Grand Cayman, Dr. de Miguel plays an active role in her community, which goes beyond the office hours. which I see a lot of doctors and other medical practitioners in Cayman doing as well. She has provided free workshops to both children and adults on the importance of sun safety and protection, which is, of course, very important in Cayman. Within the Cayman community, she has collaborated a lot with the Cayman Islands Cancer Society, offering free melanoma screening to patients during Skin Cancer Awareness Month. And in addition to her thriving practice, Dr. De Miguel spends her spare time paying it forward and mentoring young students in the community, for which we're very grateful. Dr. De Miguel.
Thank you, Chief Officer. Good evening, Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, colleagues, sponsors, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Cayman Island Medical and Dental Society, I would like to thank the organizing committee for the gracious invitation to be present at the 10th annual conference today. It's an honor to be here at this conference. This conference has grown so much over the years and is considered one of the most important events in the Cayman Island. This year has attracted many people, including medical professionals, business owners, insurance companies, and the general public, just to name a few. Everybody has mentioned already that this has been already fully booked event from the very beginning. The first day, it was already a waiting list, so I have to also say congratulations. This year's topic is based on innovating the future of healthcare. With many advancements happening in the medical realm in both the Caribbean and globally, great strides have been made in the growth of the healthcare industry by modern technology to assist with patients' medical needs and new medications with companies such as our friends here, Ironshore Pharmaceuticals. Medicine has been evolving in the last years and now has reached a new turning point of using modern-day technology to assist in innumerable ways. Here in the Caribbean, although we are sometimes considered to be on island time, we have started adopting these new technology advances in our practices. As a Caribbean island, in fact, 3 islands, some of these newly adopted methods, which has been already been adopted overseas, can and will have a powerful impact on how we see our patients today. There is still a need to create new codes for these new procedures here in Cayman. And on behalf of the Cayman Island Medical and Dental Society, we are willing to offer our expertise. A topic that has gained attention this year is the use of telemedicine. This is a new way to communicate with our patients near and far. At times, it can be difficult to our patients to reach out their physicians due to different circumstances. With the innovating form of communication, we are able to assist and provide medical advice from a distance. Of course, this practice has no intention of losing face-to-face visits, but it allows us to assist in any way we can do a better serve on our community. Telemedicine will be a valuable resource for our patients that travel from one of the sister islands. Cayman has yet to fully adapt to this new form of medicine, and I'm sure after listening to the speeches on this topic, which I'm looking forward to hearing, health insurance providers and physicians can come together to implement this new method of seeing our patients. However, there are now new online platforms emerging from other countries that are now offering physicians here to be a part of an online consultation. I believe in telemedicine as a complementary resource to assist our face-to-face patients and not to substitute them for an online visits. We are now in the moment working on building the framework and carefully implementing regulations to follow within guidelines. I'm sure I speak on behalf of many physicians and medical professionals when I say that we are passionate about the newly developing field of medicine. I truly believe we have an excellent healthcare system in place in the Cayman Islands to adopt these modern methods. And as always, we will continue striving for newer and better ways to treat our patients. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. De Miguel, and thank you for the CIMDS and also all the other councils and commissions that work in tandem with government, mainly on a volunteer basis, to improve the service of healthcare in the Cayman Islands and having such a strong regulatory background that we can all exist in. Thank you. Okay, at this time, I would like to introduce our speaker for the evening, Dr. James Hospedales. It's been mentioned already, he was the former executive director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, known as CARPHA. Now, Dr. Hospedales is no stranger to this healthcare conference, and we're very appreciative of that. The institutional knowledge he carries in him is absolutely immense, and I think that's one of the things that we should be very grateful for, not just with Dr. Hospedales, but with so many of our healthcare professionals in Cayman. Dr. Hospedales served as the inaugural executive director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency from 2013 to 2019. Under his leadership, the agency has actually become a recognized player in the global public health field, bringing attention to climate change as the #1 threat facing the region, unfortunately, and the other side of the same coin, which is non-communicable diseases, or NCDs. Dr. Hospedales currently serves as chair of the Defeat NCD Partnership Governing Board. So he's not retired yet. He's going on. Most people kind of keep going into the twilight years, not really retiring, which is a good testament to good health and carrying on. This board that he works with is actually a private-based partnership, and it's UN-led, and it aims to address non-communicable diseases in low-resource countries around the entire world, focusing on the finance and business sectors, in particular, in his case, focusing in the Caribbean. From 2006 to 12, he was coordinator of the Chronic Disease Prevention and Control at the Pan American World Health Organization, PAHOHU, and from 1998 to 2006, he was director of the Caribbean Epidemiology Center, CAREC. Dr. Hospedales was a member of the Caribbean Commission on Health and Development, which made policy recommendations to the heads of government and named chronic diseases as a super priority for the Caribbean region, along with HIV/AIDS and the health sequela of injuries and violence. So I would like to give a very warm welcome to our returning speaker, Dr. Hospedales.
Honorable Minister of Health and other members of the head table, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, let me also recognize my wife who's in the audience, which makes me feel nervous for some reason. It is really my great pleasure to be in Cayman Islands again and to be able to bring this opening keynote speech at the opening of the conference. This morning we spent about 2 hours in your National Museum in town. How many people have been to the museum? Quite a few, and perhaps most not so. I'm not paid to do this, but I encourage you. It was very informative and very pleasant place to be. So I'm supposed to be covering the subject of Dr. Lee had asked me to look back and look ahead and what are some of the challenges. I had wanted to speak quite a bit about non-communicable diseases and the impact that they have on the economy. I was hoping Minister Taggart would still be here, since I hear he's the money man. Because some of the messages are directed in that direction. Now, how do I advance like that? There you go, right. Caribbean public health, past and future, a key ingredient in economic development. And you can take a picture of this slide, and then you can go outside and come back, because that represents the various things I'll be talking about. It's actually harder to give a long talk than a short one. But I'll give a brief look back at what we call the Caribbean Cooperation in Health program of work, and then look ahead at some of the challenges this region faces. Cayman is in a peculiar sort of bubble, it seems, not necessarily affected by all the other problems that the region has, such as emerging epidemics of homicide in many countries. But many of the other things you do have, NCDs for one, and all the climate problems that we face. So let's go. Congratulations, as has been said, on the 10th Annual Cayman Islands Healthcare Conference. There's been a lot of progress here and in the broader Caribbean region. And the context that the world is in today is one of unprecedented change. And I've put unprecedented in bold because that's the newest epidemic. That word appears, unprecedented, unprecedented. Unprecedented means we really didn't see it before. So the past doesn't prepare us so well to deal with it. It means we need to be more resilient than ever. There are social changes, political, economic, technology changes, artificial intelligence. Our son is the principal scientist for Samsung Artificial Intelligence Research in Cambridge. And that kind of boggles the mind when you hear what he talks about. But we also have real problems with environmental degradation. We're despeciating our planet. And we have in many places worsening inequality both within and between countries. They're very volatile and uncertain times. You only have to look at what happened in Saudi Arabia or what happened with the boreal forests burning just a month or two ago. And that climate change, therefore, I believe is the overarching threat that our region faces. And it's the other side of the coin to non-communicable disease. How is that? Well, you can read something I've written about it, but it's about overconsumption of fossil fuel, of food, without sufficient thought about what it means for us individual and our health, and what it means for the planet. So this talk is going to be looking back and looking ahead at some of those challenges. Now, public health, the region's public health, the vision and the challenge. I went back to find, what can I say about public health? And somebody wrote this from the Department of Health of Scotland. The pursuit of public health can have no finality. The problems are changing rapidly with increasing medical knowledge and changes in the social and economic conditions, the age distribution of the population, and the outlook of people, because people are never satisfied. They always want more. And I thought, this is really brilliant. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And the only thing I could add to improve on this definition of what's public health is today we really have to put a lot of attention as well on changing environmental conditions. And in your museum this morning, I was struck by how many times that hurricane symbol appears and punctuates the years, up to the big one of 1932, but then you had Ivan in 2004 or 5, and I don't know what you've had since, but somebody said they hope it's not going to come again. I can tell you with certainty it will come again. It may take many years, but it will. And so when you look at some of the images of public health, I found online the Department of Environmental Health of Cayman, and this morning I learned of how your coat of arms was constructed. Very interesting. And if you don't know that, well, you should look it up. It's quite interesting. And we're surrounded by countries that, for the most part, generate our tourists, Public Health England, Canada, the CDC, the Dutch territories. And I've put as well in the bottom, I put CARPHA there, and I see online, I didn't know this, that CARPHA got co-branded with TCI Cares. Or at least you can find that online. When you search online, you find all kinds of interesting things. So Turks and Caicos Islands co-branded with CARPHA, which is the regional public health agency that I headed up until a couple months ago. And in the bottom right-hand corner, I put one that you wouldn't recognize because it doesn't exist. I bought the domain name 48 hours ago, earthmedic.com. Because I believe this planet needs a medic. Medic. This planet's in trouble. If I were a planet doctor on duty in the central galaxy and my job is to be worried about planets, I'd be worried about this one. It's overheating, and mostly we are the cause. We're not being good stewards. So I put these up there just to make you think, what is public health and what are all the different agencies that are concerned about public health? Santé Publique France is one of the new ones. That's a merger. As CARPHA was a merger, Santé Publique was 3 into 1. Much of the public health of our region can be encapsulated in something called the Caribbean Cooperation in Health. And I'll say a bit more about that as we go along. And I've had much of my life has accompanied, my professional life has accompanied this, certainly phases 2 and 3 and now 4. And there are a lot of partners that work in this. Of course, all the member states, including Cayman Islands, that is an associate member of CARICOM, are shown along the bottom, and the CARICOM Secretariat, the Pan American Health Organization, and many other partners, Healthy Caribbean Coalition, and international development partners. This is important. Public health doesn't happen one person by themselves. It's almost always a partnership effort. And CCH aims to improve and sustain the health of the people of the Caribbean, and it's a mechanism by which resources and attention are focused on shared problems and priority issues that the region faces. Projects are often developed in priority areas as a way to solve those problems. In CCH4, where we're currently placed, that's the meeting that took place a couple of years ago in Port of Spain. It was a hotel like this. It wasn't the Ritz. It was the Hilton. Somebody from Cayman was there, because a whole bunch of people were there from all over the Caribbean. And these were the priorities: health systems for universal health coverage, safe, resilient, and healthy environments to mitigate climate change, health and well-being throughout the life course, data and evidence for decision-making, and partnership and resource mobilization for health. So regionally, that's the current operating framework, if you will, for public health in our region. Now, if we look back, I was touching on some of these. If you go back to even before CCH, look over the period 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you see strong influence from the United Kingdom. Most of our countries in this part of the world were British territories. And you can see the Frank Stockton report of 1942. Big emphasis on publicly owned systems of primary care and hospitals. There were very few private practitioners back in those days. And the first regional joint program was called SPAC-GEM, the Special Program to Combat Gastroenteritis and Malnutrition. Before my time, but you can find it written up, and how the region agreed on clean water, agreed on a number of things to tackle this problem. And today it's mostly controlled. We have different kinds of malnutrition now. We have obesity, and you can have fat kids who are nutrient deficient, can be anemic. And right at the end of the 70s, something important took place in the world, the Declaration of Alma Ata on primary health care. If you go to the bottom of the slide, you'll see the Declaration of Astana of 2018. It's 50 years after Alma Ata. In the 80s, and I was just a young epidemiologist at that point, the big highlight was the elimination of indigenous measles, subsequently rubella. I've got a slide on that in a moment, which I can show. When I was a medical student in my clinical years in Jamaica, we saw dozens of kids coming in with measles every week, some with encephalitis, some with pneumonias, some with malnutrition. And just shortly after I graduated, then became the vaccination programs. And by the time I was an epidemiologist, the permission or the mandate was secured from the ministers of health to try and eliminate it. And in 1990, we had the big bang where 92% of children under the age of 14 were vaccinated in 1 month, and transmission stopped. We were sort of lucky because the year before there had been a natural epidemic. This was like a 1-2 combination punch, if you will. And following the natural epidemic and then this mass campaign, transmission stopped. And for 2 or 3 years after that, folks would come from the US Centers for Disease Control or the British Department of Health and say, how did you do that? I've got to tell you, it felt really good to have Americans and British people asking us, how did we do it? Because normally, you're looking the other way. But it was by coordinated action, it was by setting targets, planning, training people, and then executing the plan. And thereafter, from this slide, the same thing was done with rubella. And this region has had 30 years of being free from measles. no longer having thousands of kids getting it every year, no longer having children admitted with pneumonia. And that benefit accrues year in and year out. And that concept of accruing benefit from positive health and health campaigns like this is an important one. In the 90s, during what was called CCH2, the big success really, I think, is the massive scale-up of the HIV/AIDS response. And I was part of a campaign that went around the region to engage cabinets and parliaments to speak to head, to heart, and to pocket, which was the phrase we coined in our campaign, to try and, I was sometimes the epidemiologist, and I would give the numbers of the rising incidence of HIV. And honestly, sometimes the finance minister would either be bored or asleep. But when the economists started to speak about what this would mean for savings, what this would mean for GDP, the finance minister woke up, paid a bit more attention, and then we'd have a tearjerker at the end, somebody with HIV who's lost their job or been put out of their home, or in other ways discriminated or stigmatized. And that campaign was part of stimulating this massive scale-up in the HIV/AIDS response that now, I'll show you something. If you look at this chart, which shows the causes of death as a percentage of all deaths from 2000 to 2016, you see normally mortality doesn't change that much in a short time, but if you look over this period, HIV is that red line. It's just come down and down and down from being 30–40% of all deaths to now 1 or 2% of deaths. That's a phenomenal success, both for prevention and for treatment. And as you probably know, if you have HIV these days and you stay on your treatment, AIDS doesn't kill you. It's your heart will kill you or your diabetes will kill you. I was in Haiti last year and we saw a big study of 70,000 people with HIV, and what was killing was cardiovascular disease and diabetes, no longer AIDS per se. So this slide is a sort of evidence, if you will, of a phenomenal success that began in this second period, CCH2. A lot of things have been happening in parallel. Structural adjustment policies of some of the international development agencies, health sector reform, reform in Trinidad, reform in Jamaica with the birth of autonomous health authorities, and many would argue more and more investment in hospitals at the expense of primary health care. And when you look from a population point of view, you get your biggest yields in public health by disproportionately trying to hold on to your primary health care and your public health prevention measures. Hospitals do have cost-effective, and we need hospitals, but inordinate growth of hospitals at the expense of primary care and population health is not a good way to manage the overall state of health of the nation, any nation. You just have to look north of us and see the disaster that they have there. Sorry for any Americans in the audience. That hasn't resulted in good health indicators for the amount of money that is spent. In phase 3, something interesting happened in CCH3, and that's by that time now I'm the director at CAREC, and we worked at elevating NCDs, non-communicable disease, to global attention. It was the first time our countries of the Caribbean, small as we are, were able to get the United Nations to hold a special summit on this. I was on the floor in 2010 when the request was made, the floor in New York. The request was made for this to be held, and there was an agreement on it. A lot of things took place there. The countries in raising up attention to it because of concern about the human and economic cost. Regional institutions that existed, the University of the West Indies, CAREC, which I was at, the PAHO, WHO, and those things really helped propel NCDs to global attention. In parallel, during this time, I note the global financial crisis of 2008, just over 10 years ago. And the Caribbean as a whole essentially has not really recovered from that. It was at the last Board of Governors meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank where their chief economist was mapping out what this means for us, this lack of recovery, the greater indebtedness, and the lack of cash flow. Maybe that's not so here, but in the broader Caribbean, There's still very much a lingering malaise from that global financial crisis of 2008, and continued growth in some countries and building of new hospitals. One or two of our countries in the Eastern Caribbean, you look at the huge hospital that was built and you think, how in the world are they going to staff it, run it, heat it, cool it, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes we put our hats where we hang, what's the saying? You hang your hat where you can't reach. But let me jump ahead then to, this is the first ever summit of heads of state against chronic non-communicable diseases. It was in Port of Spain in 2007, September the 15th. And they gave rise to the Port of Spain Declaration, which had 26 commitments and 15 articles in it. And that's a pretty sight. Only one gentleman there is still a serving prime minister, and that's Ralph Gonsalves, to the bottom and right, the comrade, as he's often called. And pretty much everyone else has demitted office or passed on. Prime Minister Manning, who died a couple of years ago, of Trinidad and Tobago, I wrote him up in a WHO book on great leaders for universal health coverage, because under his stewardship, the country and then the region of the Caribbean really took on this challenge of NCDs and led the world, had a legacy globally, which has been published in quite a few places, how it was done to raise the priority, the importance of political process, packaging evidence. Not only evidence doesn't speak by itself. You have to package it to speak to head, to heart, and to pocket. Having champions like Sir George Aline, the role of civil society and how important that is in any major societal change. Issues of accountability and having a good accountability architecture. That article also explored the global legacy of this conference, the conference of our heads of government. And subsequently, we looked at the accountability issues and how compliance is monitored with these commitments. And that does include Cayman Islands, by the way. So every year, there is a scorecard on how folks are doing. And we figured in this article that the scorecard is good for the purpose. There are some issues, but it identified gaps in supportive regional goods. And in particular, it identified the huge gap that the whole charter had in nutrition and dietary issues. We really had dropped the ball on that as a region, and we see the impact of it in increasing obesity, increasing child obesity, which I'll come to a bit more, and driving diabetes and hyperpressure and so on. And that was to lead to something that I'm particularly proud of, the 6-point policy package on healthier food environments. I'll say a bit more about that. There have been 3 of these high-level meetings on non-communicable diseases in New York. The last one was September last year. And it looks as if somebody was trying to prod Prime Minister Harris to go to New York because they put his picture on a ticket to go up to JFK. Prime Minister the Honorable Timothy Harris is our Minister of Health in CARICOM, if you will. Because there's a quasi-cabinet, and each head has a particular portfolio. And St. Kitts and Nevis, Prime Minister Harris, is Health and Human Development. What his predecessor, Dr. Douglas, was a physician, so it was easy to get on with him. Prime Minister Harris is tougher because he's a money man. He's an accountant. But we're getting through to him. He's beginning to get it. And he says, Hospedales, you mean if I deal with health, I will have a better economy? I said, yes, sir. The message is getting through. And if you know him, he has a very basso profundo voice. So we hope that in the quasi-cabinet of CARICOM, that he will become increasingly a voice that would be heard and respected when he's speaking for health, because he's not going to be batting so much on health grounds as he will be batting on economic grounds. CCH4, the sort of corporation health, functional corporation framework we're in now, saw the birth of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, and I had the honor and privilege to be the first executive director. There will be other executive directors, but there'll only be one first. And this is the CARICOM institution with responsibility for public health. It merges CAREC, the Caribbean Epidemiology Center, which many people would have known, CFNI, the Food and Nutrition Institute, which was based in Jamaica, the Health Research Council, the Environmental Health Institute, and the Drug Testing Lab in Jamaica, which is now the only accredited medicines quality control lab in the English-speaking Caribbean. Established by heads of government, operational in 2013, with many different partners. I wrote a piece for The Lancet, which was published in July, on the role that this new agency has played in anchoring regional health security by helping to coordinate the response to the epidemics and the threat of Ebola, by running a laboratory service that most of the countries benefit from, able to afford access to a level 3 security lab at reasonable cost. A number of new services were added in the time there. We have a tourism and health program, which is a public-private partnership with the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. And CARPHA is the only public health entity in the world that is accredited to the World Tourism Organization. That's because they realize that what we're doing is really beneficial to the quality and competitiveness of tourism globally. There's a field epidemiology and lab training program. I'll say a bit more about the regulatory system for pharmaceuticals, which aims to increase access, bring down costs, and make it easier for business to operate in our region. Research and knowledge management was a big part of the work there and still is. The CARPHA Annual Health Research Conference is now just finished its 64th. So you reached 10? Okay. Next year we'll be in Jamaica, the 65th Annual Health Research Conference, and that makes it the longest running health conference, ladies and gentlemen, in Latin America and the Caribbean. And you're part of that, so you can boast about that too. You have 10 here, and you're part of the one that's reached 65 years. And you see some of the stuff that initiative has done. It's going to be it's normally in June. Minister Tufton in Jamaica has asked for it to be in March next year. So those of you who plan conferences know that if the minister moves the date by 3 months, it puts you into a state of panic to figure out how we're going to deliver it. But fortunately, that's not my worry anymore. The registration system for the regulatory system for pharmaceuticals has been built. A reason why is that most of the CARICOM countries, in a survey of about 6 or 7 years ago, shows that we have a really weak regulatory capacity in the region for medicines and health technologies. It's either limited or it's absent. And if medicines are bad, health technologies are a Wild West. In many of the countries, you could go down the road, as they say in Trinidad, and put up a sign, medical laboratory, get your instant chikungunya and Zika results. And there's no quality control for who can open a lab, who can work there, the quality of the test kits that you use. So it really is a dire need for regulating, having better regulation of medicines and technologies. And this aims to really have a small regulatory unit that is reviewing the dossiers using a WHO abbreviated procedure, first of essential generics, but then essentials, and then broadening the net. And the bottom line needs changing. It's like almost 50 medicines have been registered to date, including, I'm very happy with the new cholera vaccine, which will benefit Haiti, and the hepatitis C cure. So those are some of the things that are going on through this, and again, Cayman can benefit from that. We pay too much for medicines and technologies in the Caribbean in general. We are paying too much, and we see that globally. That's partly the partnership that I'm chairing is aiming to disrupt the market by using shared economies of scale to bring down the prices of drugs, diagnostics, and devices. We're paying way too much. Okay. That seems to have met with... I was in Haiti last year, and you can buy insulin, the 10 doses from Novo, for $1.76, or you can buy it for $22. That's the price range that you saw going around the pharmacies in Haiti. Now, who in Haiti can afford $22 for insulin? So we are paying too much in general. I shared that this was the impetus for the setting up of this system. This article in the Lancet of July summarizes some of the achievements and future challenges that our region faces. I was very happy when this was published just as I was leaving. So I've talked a bit about the past and some of the looking back. Let's look ahead, and this is a smorgasbord of slides of different sorts of subjects to get your interest. First, our demography is changing, which I think everyone would realize. The populations are aging, and almost 100 years ago, somebody saw that as well. And if you look at it this way, you see that population pyramids for the Caribbean are changing and changing. The changing dependency ratios. But this slide also has a lot of importance for people who are on the money side of our economy. Why? This means fewer people, smaller proportion of people paying contributions to NIS, National Insurance. And so with that in mind, I've been advocating with our social security directors in the region that we really need to work together to prevent this. Their actuaries are concerned about projecting and making sure they don't lose money. I think they need to spend some time thinking, how can we bend the curve? How can we prevent some of the extremely costly problems that are happening in the working age population? If you understand anything about this area, you're very dependent in early life, you're dependent in later life, you're supposed to be working in the middle and earning some money that would be set aside for your retirement. But what if the middle age or in the working age, a lot of people are sick? A lot of presenteeism, a lot of absenteeism, a lot of early retirement because of some of these chronic problems. That's not good for the economy. And at the end of another presentation I gave, this is the summary, that these non-communicable disease problems and their risk factors, alcohol, tobacco, poor diet, physical inactivity, plus aging and years of living with disability is increasing social security costs and making for unfavorable economic development conditions. This is a subject of an IMF report, International Monetary Fund report, on the imminent insolvency of Caribbean social security institutions. A big part of it is because of non-communicable diseases. Which is why I chose in this talk to say, this health issue is not just for the doctors. We really need the help of the economic side and the social side to solve these problems. This is the scorecard that I mentioned earlier from the Port of Spain. And this has countries going down and then the thematics going across. And the reddest part of the graph is around diet and nutrition. I talked a bit about accountability and the importance of trying to hold our heads of government accountable for commitments that they made in 2007. And at a meeting in June, the Minister might be interested in this, there was a group from the civil society who asked the Caribbean Court of Justice, can we sue the heads of government for not having honored their commitments? Interesting one, eh? Since they made these commitments in public and it's legally binding, can they be brought to the Supreme Court to say, you didn't do what you said you were going to do? And people are dying and it's costing a lot. Families, it's costing Social Security, it's costing insurance, etc. It may not fly, but it's like the guy who tried to get his age changed, He was making a point. You haven't heard about that? Somebody tried to get the birth certificate changed to be 20 years younger than he really was. Go Google it. It's a very interesting one. Oops. And they threaten progress towards the Sustainable Development Agenda. The Institute for Health Metrics has a statement out that most countries of the world are not on track to meet their targets with respect to non-communicable diseases. So this global partnership that I chair the board of, I want to make the Institute of Health, I want to make a lie of their statement. I want to make a lie of the statement that most countries are not on track to reach these targets. And to do that, it needs a partnership approach like we've never had before, with the private sector, with civil society, with academia, politicians, parliamentarians, everybody. The Defeat NCD Partnership Caribbean concept, I've grounded it in Professor Carl Theodore's statement. Caribbean economies are struggling because people are not healthy enough, mostly because of non-communicable diseases. We have a huge burden, but we also have a lot of a promising ecosystem of countries, regional institutions, and many international partners who can help. The finance and business sectors, from my point of view, which are hemorrhaging or hurting because of this, have not been sufficiently tapped. Many people in the public health community have a fear of working with the private sector because of conflict of interest. But I think the finance and business sector is one that we really have to pay more attention to. I mean, insurance, credit unions, banks, Social Security that are suffering. We in the Caribbean have mostly small populations. Cayman and many others have a high per capita income, but that doesn't mean you're not low resource in terms of all the requirements to tackle this problem. And so the Defeat NCD partnership have persuaded them that the small island developing states of the world need special attention. And the goal in this region is to try and support the attainment of the UN target of reducing mortality from NCDs by 1/3 and reduce the upward cost spiral. And those are some of the things that I hope we can do, partnering with tourism, the Single Market and Economy Initiative of the region, finance, banking, and so on. I met the head of Credit Union Association for the Caribbean, and he listened to me for a while, and he said, my gosh, we need your help, and we don't even know we need your help. And he talked about inventing new instruments to create financial incentives and nudges for behavior in the population. You know, imagine you have an insurance package and you get 5% off if you walk 150 minutes a week, and we can monitor it because we partner with the cell phone companies to do it. And you get so much more off if you don't smoke, and so on. So you can get 25% or 30% off if you do all these things that will mean a healthy lifestyle. I think that's the kind of thinking that we need outside of the medical box that's going to maybe help us to bend the curve. Everyone talks about partnership as well and collaboration, but when you think about it, there's a dearth of practical tools and how-to guidelines. You can find guidelines for caring diabetic feet, guidelines for dealing with the eyes, guidelines for all kinds of stuff. But it is hard to find guidelines and training for how you actually work in an all-of-society manner. How do you work with somebody that you don't like? How do you work with somebody that has done you bad stuff before, you know, having a difficult conversation and getting past it? So I want to develop, or be part of, an academic researching and training on this all-of-society response, because we don't have enough of it. We talk it, but we need tools to walk the talk. Diving into non-communicable diseases a little bit more, you see the cause groups of death here from taking some CARPHA slides, and the big red band across the middle are all the non-communicable diseases, and the purple or lilac are the injuries. And if you look at that purple or lilac, it's actually increasing proportionately over this 10-year period. And if you look at this one, the green is non-communicable. This is proportional mortality by age group. So if you look in the 10 to 14, 16, 20 to 24, you see with that purple line, that's all our young men killing each other. It's mostly young men killing each other. Or they kill their spouse or their girlfriend. And the reasons behind that are complex. So violence and injuries, which is a little bit later on. This is really, this part of the talk is focused on NCDs, but the purple line is dramatic. The proportion of deaths that are due to violence and injuries in the region. And in the Caribbean, most people, about half the people have some form of non-communicable disease, hypertension, diabetes, overweight, gout, what have you. Mental health was mentioned earlier. That's also very important, and they're interconnected. If you have diabetes, cancer, you get depressed. If you're depressed, you don't take your medicine, et cetera, et cetera. There are important gender and poverty dimensions to this story as well. This posits that this is a nurture, not nature problem for the most part. This slide is out of sync. But this is jumping to, beside the numbers of people with diabetes, how well do we do in looking after them? And this is an analysis of 5 countries where you start with the total number of people in the population estimated that have diabetes, and then how many have actually had it measured, their glucose measured, and how many has had the result passed back to them, and have they been referred, and are they retained, are they in care, Are they on treatment? Are they adherent? And are they under control? And when you go down that cascade for diabetes in these 5 countries, it's about 30 to 40% of people are effectively controlled. And for hypertension, it's about 1 in 5 to 1 in 4. So as a population, individual physician may feel, I'm doing a great job with all my patients. When you back off and look at it from a population point of view, which is what I'm asked to do, you realize we're not doing very well at all. Because there's still people to be discovered who have blood pressure or diabetes. Then they need to be referred, retained, educated, understand the importance of the disease, change lifestyle, stay on the medication. And that is the big challenge. All countries have this problem. The richest country in the world has this problem, as does the poorest country in the world. So if we can be innovative, this conference is about innovation, right? If we can be innovative, especially in our smaller countries, and find new ways to partner and have digital health components and pharma components, and the patient and the family engaged, and the businesses engaged, then maybe we can change this graph and show the world how you can do it. Because everybody has this graph, is my point, whether it's the UK, the US, or us in the Caribbean. The next slides just tell you we have a disaster in the region where NCDs are concerned. Many of them will have the Cayman Islands listed, but we have high prevalences of raised blood pressure. Tobacco use is not as bad, so to speak, but it's significant among males, and especially males from lower SES groupings that are smoking in significant amounts. Harmful use of alcohol. This always gets people interested in commenting, why is St. Lucia so high? Why is Aruba where it is? Cayman seems to be in the middle. But the alcohol burden, of course, is not only mental health, not only an NCD issue, but very significant mental health problem, injuries, violence, reduced productivity. And it's getting worse. The alcohol companies are not being held sufficiently to account. I have no problems that we manufacture the award-winning rums in the Caribbean. We should continue to do so and enjoy them. But we need to take a handle on harmful use of alcohol. We have too many young boys and girls underage drunk every week or every other week. And that's just not good. That really needs a determined effort. In the region as a whole, when I look back at the 20 or 30 years I've been involved, it's really the health ministers haven't really seized this, nor more broadly in the economy and government ministers. Poor dietary practices, this is fruits and vegetables, although we live in the Caribbean, in most countries, you're lucky if somebody has an average of 1 a day, and it's between 1 and 2. So we're, again, a long way to go in improving this for all the benefits that it has that this audience should know already. Levels of physical activity, a bit higher in men than in women, so you have a gender dimension there. But overall, we need to be more physically active. I'm sorry the governor shot out because I hear he was a cyclist. I'm always promoting cycling and walking as good alternative transports. Cayman, I was saying to my wife, it's fairly flat, it's small. Why don't we have a program of alternative transport, biking and walking? A further benefit in that for the finance minister is a little less money to be spent on importing gas and oil. So you have benefits to health, benefits to the planet, and benefits to the economy, and you can get some cross-benefits to tourism as well. The political economy of it shouldn't be that hard. Who's going to resist that? Obesity epidemic I've touched on, and I put a slide here that comes from my colleague Seymour in St. Kitts and Nevis of an 11-year-old boy who's 190 pounds. And he really is going to have serious issues later on unless this is able to be brought under control. And more countries are opening up obesity clinics for kids or adolescents. Often the diabetes of an adolescent seems to be more toxic, if you will, than an older person. That's partly why when I was at CARPHA, we pushed for this 6-point policy package for healthier food environments that the trade and economic sector ministers have given some nod to. To deliver this really needs a lot of work still to be done on front of pack labeling, on reformulation, on what's in our schools, on the advertising to children that many of the countries have no control over. It's shameful what's going on. Last year I spent quite a bit of time, and the year before in South America, seeing the leadership that's coming from places like Ecuador, places like Chile, that have introduced mandatory front-of-pack labeling. And there's a roadmap here, which should be hard to read, of the various jobs of the different institutions in the region to tackle this problem and make a healthier food environment for our children. Partnerships and alliances are integral to doing that. The economic impact I touched on, but this slide is from Trinidad and Tobago, where an assessment was done of the economy impact, 4.3% of the gross domestic product, or 1.2 billion US per year, approximately half in direct medical care costs and half in indirect costs. Indirect costs for cancer being particularly high because people will often be off work for a long time, or other caregivers will be off work for a long time. But hypertension, diabetes, and cancer, tremendous bill on. If your economy is not growing, if it's flat, you can't afford this. The economy is 0 or 1 or less. You can't afford this. Have to pay attention to these preventable impediments to economic growth. And it affects lots of different groups, the working age population, senior people, government and community organizations. It often affects people during their prime. It's a major cause of household poverty. The new minister in Jamaica, finance, Nigel Clark, I met him last year, and he said, now that I'm in constitutional politics and going to the community, this problem is rampant of NCDs, and it needs to be tackled. People don't even realize that if you know the frog in hot water story, you put a frog in cold water and warm it up, it doesn't realize the water is getting hot and it dies. If you put it in hot water, it jumps out. So people don't realize, well, my father had this and my mother had this, so I'm going to get it too. But not necessarily. And so I've been pushing for a dialogue on economic dimensions of non-communicable diseases to really engage key stakeholders from finance and social security and so on to tackle this problem. How do we improve development? How can we invest in healthy aging for sustainability of the social security sector? Where is the fiscal space to pay for this? The challenge at national level, many countries are highly indebted. There isn't the fiscal space to do it. But can insurance companies improve their profitability? I think that's a dialogue worth having. What's the sweet spot between increasing revenue and decreasing risk from tobacco and alcohol or sugary sweetened beverages? Just a bit more on cancer. It's among the non-communicable diseases, but it deserves some additional attention for the significance of this problem in our communities. And the burden is increasing with the aging of our populations. You can prevent a lot of cardiovascular disease and reduce it, but the cancer burden is going to grow. And so ministers of health and ministers of finance need to sort of digest this one. We also have an issue where a lot of our like cervical cancer, 2 to 9 times higher mortality rates in the Caribbean compared to the United States. And that just shouldn't be so. So we have work to do in this regard. I was giving this talk last week, a week before in Barbados, on the political economy of NCDs, since we sometimes think technically, oh, this is very good to do, but when you try the politics of it, makes it much harder to do. So I've been paying more attention to that recently and seeing how you address this. My time is coming close to being up, so I better not show you too many more slides. But this is one meant to say, scientific evidence is not enough. We tend to preach to the converted, and so Einstein there is saying, if you do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, you're insane. And Mandela is saying, well, if you can talk to a man in language he understands, it goes to his head, and if you talk to him in his language, it goes to his heart. And I've put a little tweak on that to say that if you talk to a finance person about the economy, and you talk to a business person about profit and productivity and competitiveness, those are things they understand. It's because of medical problems, but don't put the medical problem first. Put the thing they're interested in first in trying to get through to economic and policymakers. And so the next slides talk about using a political economy approach to analyze the problem. If we look at the issue of sin taxes, for instance, it's like a magic. You know, you put some taxes up and you're going to get more revenue and you're going to reduce the health burden. But that doesn't take into account the political struggle that will result, because the companies that have greater economic and political resources will resist. So how can public health win despite these powerful commercial forces is an area where we need much more scholarship in the world. The struggle is real. My youngest daughter, who has a health challenge, tells me that, Daddy, the struggle is real. And in Mexico, they used the political economy approach to get their soda tax through. But in China, they weren't successful. Why? Well, one of the reasons is the Coca-Cola company created a business interest NGO, a bingo, that was embedded in the China CDC, and through a complex, it managed to get the message that it is physical activity and not diet that matters, and that is just not true. So this is how the war can go, if you will. And we need to have eyes open in tackling some of these problems in our part of the world. This is one of my favorite stories from my Old Testament hero is Nehemiah, and he had a problem he was dealing with in trying to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. He faced a situation of poverty, and he heard there was a great outcry from the people and their wives. It's one of the few places where women and their social mobilization role are actually mentioned in the Bible like this. He was very angry. And he thought it over, and he argued with them, and he arranged a great assembly against them. He arranged a demonstration of people to come in front of the rich and say, enough is enough. We can't do our jobs. You're taxing us. You're taking our children into slavery. So I wonder, where non-communicable diseases are concerned, where is the great assembly of the people? How can we do this digitally, globally, and get 1 billion text signatures saying we need to pay attention to this? And how can the Caribbean be the place that kickstarts that? Lots of actors to be engaged in doing this sort of thing. I should stop. I'll tell you what I'm saying ahead of it. In talking some of the new challenges we face, the next few slides deal with marijuana and the policy shifts in the Caribbean to decriminalize and legalize it. And when I was at CARPHA, we produced an evidence brief on the medical uses. And here are some of, very quickly, if you just look at the red lines, you can see what that research showed for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, for asthma, for cancer, and it's considerable clinical evidence in treating chemotherapy-induced symptoms of nausea and vomiting, cystic fibrosis, insufficient data, dementia, didn't find cannabinoids to be effective, epilepsy, appears to have an anti-epileptic effect, glaucoma, stimulant from HIV and AIDS, multiple sclerosis, pain, was found to be moderately efficacious. Now, all this research is based on relatively limited studies, because in most countries it is illegal or remains illegal. So quite a lot more research is actually needed, and probably with that will come increased understanding of the benefits. That's the summary: positive findings and negative findings. And this is on the CARPHA website if you were interested. You know, Bermuda was quite interested in this, so the PS there was on to us in the last few weeks, getting all the updates for their consideration. Further research is needed on the health effects. A lot of young men are experimenting with the more potent versions of marijuana, and we don't know what happens. My time's up till we meet again on the passing parade. This is John Doremus. It's more potent than it used to be. It's not your parents' pot, as one article said. And you know that means, yeah, it needs to be a lot more attention needs to be paid to it in increasing association of crash risks in the states that have approved marijuana recreational use. So proceeding with caution and monitoring and evaluating policy changes while educating the population on the harmful effects is the summary of the advice in this regard. A few words on climate, because there's a climate session tomorrow. But this one slide on the left there summarizes the global science to us in the Caribbean. We are facing overall hotter, drier times with more monster storms and extreme rain events. If anybody's here from Trinidad and Tobago, they would know last year, October, there was extreme rain, and just last week there was extreme rain, unprecedented rain. This has profound implications for us in the Caribbean, given where we live. We live in a watery part of the world. But a lot of health people are still sleepwalking. They're not familiar with what's going to happen. There's Maria over Dominica, and that's also, in my mind, a planetary alarm bell that's sounding for attention to this problem. And it will keep sounding, and it will keep getting louder and more disastrous, I'm sorry to say, until the world as a whole does something unprecedented, which some folks up north don't want us to do, which is to tackle this problem in an unprecedented way. These are fires burning all over the world, and the boreal forest burning recently in the north, in the Arctic, both in Europe and in North America, were of major concern. So I'm going to go to the very end, since my time is up. These are references on climate and health articles that have been written for G7, G20. Antimicrobial resistance, the problems with the mosquito-borne diseases. It was very good to have this data here to prove to the US and the UK and Europe that our data was the same as their data. There was no more Zika. And it was time to change travel advisories. PAHO Smart Hospitals initiatives, you'll hear more about that. Violence and injuries. You seem to be spared that relatively here, but in the rest of the Caribbean, we have a serious, serious problem. And let me get to the last slide, which is this, concluding comments. We have made a lot of progress, but we face unprecedented health and environmental threats, particularly as small island developing states. I believe somehow we have to restore the love of people, not only for each other, but for their planet. We have non-communicable diseases, cancer in the economy. We have mental health, substance abuse, violence problems. But there are solutions. There's a lot of evidence about what can work. It takes everyone working together in an unprecedented manner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hospedales. On behalf of the Organizing Committee and the Ministry for Health, we have a gift for you from Kirk Freeport.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. I'm so sorry we had to, that was amazing. There was so many things we could talk about. At one point I turned to Minister and we said, where do we start? There's just so much to get done. I'll make my chair comments very, very brief, but a few things struck me. The first one was that Big Bang moment that Dr. Hospedales talked about, and that, that happened with immunization, but I think we really need that globally and also in Cayman for climate change issues. The second thing is that although we're an overseas territory and we link closely with the UK and Public Health England, I'm really proud to be that Cayman Islands is an associate member state of CARICOM, because obviously we lean on a lot of the work that you've done with your various groups in the past. And underage drinking, you touched on that, and just very quickly we had something hit the media here a few months ago. It's definitely an issue that's affecting the Cayman Islands as well. And I love your concept of the partnership approach and the way you drill down into every single disease. You mentioned high blood pressure, diabetes, and all the various, what you called, it was like a ladder, cascading parameters around it, and yet, so that those are all the individual diseases, but yet it's all one big network connecting. It's just fascinating how far we've come and how far we have yet to go. So thank you for that amazing institutional knowledge. Give him another round of applause, please, Dr. Hospedales. Thank you very, very much. And just one last thing to add to that, looking at, I think it's very important, obviously healthcare has to be sustainable. So yes, it's important to have policy people, but you really have to have your economists, you have to have your accountancy experts and your finance people all on the same table when we're talking about this, and your social scientists too, so thank you. I'd like to give a very brief introduction. We have two more very brief speakers, and then we'll be able to go and enjoy fellowship outside in the networking space. The first is Dr. Samuel Williams Rodriguez. He's the Director of Primary Health Care and the Medical Officer of Health for the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority, and he's currently here in his capacity as Acting Chief Medical Officer on behalf of Dr. Lee. He's away on vacation right now. He graduated as a medical doctor in 1994 and started a residency program in genetics at the National Institute of Genetics in Havana, Cuba. In 1996, Dr. Williams and his family came to the Cayman Islands and have been a part of the local community since, in particular in our neighborhood because we're neighbors, so I see him out there exercising as well. Well done to Dr. Williams with the lifestyle choices he makes with that. Dr. Williams worked at Kingston Public Hospital in Jamaica in 2005, and during that period he sat and passed his CAMC exams, Caribbean Association of Medical Councils, and he's been with the CIHSA since 2006. He completed postgraduate studies in public health, gaining a master's in public health with the University of Liverpool. As I said, he's the Director of Primary Health Care, very important, Acting Medical Officer for Health in Cayman. And he is a member of several government and HSA committees, including, very importantly, One Health Antimicrobial Resistance Committee and others. So here we have Dr. Williams presenting now briefly. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Good evening. Just before I go to my prepared remarks, I want to say that it's an honor for me as a younger public health officer to be sitting right next to Dr. Hospedales. I think he just showed why his knowledge, his experience, his passion for public health is just remarkable, and we all want to be there someday. So the speaker before me has welcomed the delegate and all participants. I'm happy to add my welcome to those who are sharing with us for the first time and others who have become signature participants. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. The Chief Medical Officer, Dr. John Lee, sent his wishes that we all have a very successful healthcare conference. He has been very involved with the planning and is not here due to a long-standing commitment overseas. The healthcare conference has been and continues to be a premier event on Cayman annual calendar, and it's exciting to think that we are celebrating its 10th anniversary. I look forward to see how the next 10 years evolve and what new innovation for healthcare will be introduced. On this 10th annual station, prepare yourself for 3 days of intense information sharing and exchange. I am particularly pleased for the inclusion of One Health, an emerging concept for the future in healthcare, because of the unique human-animal bond and the environmental drivers of emergency infectious diseases. The likelihood of this agent spreading between animals and humans will increase, and it's important to know what is being done on an international and a national scale to address this. I'm looking forward to being part of some of the life-affecting conversation that will take place. I know that we have a cocktail party just ahead of us, and so I wish you all a successful conference, and please enjoy the evening. Good night.
Thank you very much, Dr. Williams. Right, we'll introduce the final speaker of the evening, Dr. Binoy. I paused a little. Chattuparambil, and I would like to appreciate very much that we can allow to be calling him Dr. Binoy, as he's more popularly known here. He's the executive leader and clinical director of Health City Cayman Islands, a senior cardiothoracic and vascular surgeon with over 20 years of experience. He earned his MBBS degree in the beautiful state of Kerala in India and his master's in general surgery from the prestigious Jimper in Pondicherry, India. He then completed his master's in cardiothoracic and vascular surgery at the King Edward Memorial Hospital, Mumbai in 2001. Dr. Binoy then joined Narayana Health in 2001, better known as Health City. He worked and trained as a senior registrar in cardiothoracic surgery at the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, Sydney, Australia between 2004 and 2007, and then rejoined Narayana Health in 2007 as a consultant. Dr. Binoy moved to the Cayman Islands in 2014 after being appointed as a chief cardiac surgeon at Health City in the Cayman Islands. And he performs both adult and pediatric cardiac surgeries, and his special interests include total arterial coronary revascularization, complex pediatric congenital cardiac disorders, pulmonary thromboend arteriectomy, and aortic surgeries, including hybrid procedures. Dr. Binoy has also pioneered the ECMO CPR, eCPR program in the Caribbean, for which we're very grateful, and has performed a variety of such life-saving complex procedures at Health City, many of which are first for the Caribbean region. Of course, many of us know Dr. Binoy. He's been a very well-established medical practitioner here in the Cayman Islands for a few years, and we'd like to welcome him now.
Good evening, everyone. I am so pleased to be here in this evening representing Health City Cayman Islands and to extend our ongoing support to this Cayman Islands National Healthcare Conference on this occasion of its 10th anniversary. Since our inception in the Cayman Islands in 2014, Health City has been involved with this annual conference, and we have grown and developed along with this event and also with this local healthcare industry as a whole. The first 5 years of our existence have been a time of massive growth and development for Health City. Since opening our doors, we have treated patients from over 60 countries across the globe. We have seen over 73,000 outpatients, and we have treated more than 8,000 inpatients. Also, we have performed over 5,000 procedures, including over 600 heart surgeries. That's my field. There have been many regional and local firsts. Several of them are very unusual and life-threatening cases where timely interventions have saved lives. Some of them are very close to our heart. Recently we have seen a young Caymanian after a motor vehicle accident brought to us with a fence pole penetrating the chest through and through, injuring the vital organs inside. Another young man recently after a fatal stab injury into the liver. So both these young Caymanian men walked out of the hospital into the embrace of their family and to build their future. So these are the stories that keep us medical professionals going, and the reason why we do what we do every day. In the bigger picture, with regard to expanding medical facilities available in the Cayman Islands, Health City became the region's only ECMO advanced life support center. And recently we expanded our intensive care unit to become a level 3 trauma care center. As a result, Health City now serves as a complement and an expansion to the current ICU and critical care capabilities offered in the Cayman Islands, and to some extent as an alternative to off-island trauma care. In our actions and plans, we continue to follow our mission, that is to transform the delivery of healthcare in the Caribbean and beyond. We are committed to remain in the forefront of the medical innovations while maintaining our patient-centric focus on providing the high-quality, compassionate, and affordable healthcare. That is very important when I say affordable healthcare, because we are going through a time where healthcare cost is skyrocketing, especially when it comes to tertiary care. We are also looking beyond the physical and technological expansion to the most important growth needed for a solid future for the healthcare delivery of the country or of the island. That is the development of tomorrow's medical professionals. With our Healthcare Explorers education program, we have reached out to almost 4,000 students, both from the local, private and public schools of the Cayman Islands with direct STEM education opportunities. And we are looking to expand this in the future. We are here to stay in the Cayman Islands. And we have very big plans to expand the clinical services that is not offered at this time of time. And definitely this will help the people of this island and in this region. We will soon break ground of the first comprehensive cancer center in the Caribbean. That facility will have a medical oncology, surgical oncology, radiation oncology, and hemato-oncology under one roof, and also will have an advanced bone marrow transplant facility in the near future. We are also eagerly waiting to start our organ transplant program in the as early as possible. We are waiting to have that law and regulations ready. What we see as one of our greatest and important development of this past 5 years is becoming an integrated part of the Cayman Islands medical community. We have built and greatly value the relations what we made over the years with these medical professionals, not only on this island, but in this region as a whole. We saw the spirit of this community and fraternity in the recent or the past few weeks when Cayman's hospitals all came together at a time when Hurricane Dorian devastated our neighbor country, Bahamas, where all of us joined together. And I should mention our minister, Seymour, and especially CEO of Health City, CEO of HSA, and especially our CMO, Dr. Lee. They did a great job in coordinating all these efforts. We deeply appreciate the spirit of cooperation and acceptance that we encounter in our interactions every day in the Cayman Islands community. And we look forward to grow with the islands in the years to come. Now, the next 2 days, it's going to be serious 2 days. We are going to learn about the new ideas and developments that is happening in the field of healthcare delivery, and we will be discussing issues that is pertaining to the advancement of these developments to the Cayman Islands and to some extent to the world. So this evening, let us take a lighter moment, celebrate the conference 10th anniversary and enjoy each other's presence and company. Thank you all. Have a great evening here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Binoy. Delegates will be able to go out very, very soon for the Health City Cayman Islands sponsored cocktail evening. And what I'd just like to do is remind you that breakfast will be available from 7:45 to 8:30 tomorrow morning, and it's sponsored by BAF Insurance, who are also another group celebrating their 10th anniversary of their own this year. So the presentation will start tomorrow at 8:30 a.m., but breakfast is 7:45 a.m. I'd like to welcome everyone just to go through to the cocktail reception now, and thank you very, very much for our panel of speakers. Thank you.